Trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go. Yeah, so it all blew up in my face. I'll put it like this. I feel like I got exactly what I deserved from that moment. I feel much better internally, but nothing's going to come from it except for a lot of people in the comments calling me a faggot and telling me that I'm an insufferable human being. But even though the results weren't exactly what I was hoping for, I'm extremely happy and relieved to have just gotten through it. I felt like my existence was in purgatory until I aired that out, so I just felt like a sense of urgency to do it sooner than later, specifically because of how much time had already elapsed ever since I had it planned out. I start to feel like mad pressure to actually get it done, so I'm just glad to have finally gotten it out of my system and surfaced it into the universe. If my life was ever going to change in any way, shape, or form, it's going to spawn from that moment, so I felt like my life was on hold every day that I was waiting to put that out there. I just need to get into the zeitgeist. In the story of my existence, it's almost like that was like my BCAD moment, and it got to a point where I just wanted to get the new timeline started already. Even if nothing happens in the new timeline, I just want to get it going. So even though like I'm apparently not going to spawn a better life through that moment, specifically not in the near future, at least now like I feel like everything is no longer on hold, and now I can move forward from that point, even though like I'm not really moving anywhere. I'm kind of just trapped in this life that I'm trapped in. But I just feel like I took care of unfinished business and completed the mission that I've been on for an extended period now. And now I could like move around without feeling like I have to shield my truth. There's no conversation I'm uncomfortable or not willing to have anymore with anybody, and that's the result of airing out my internal pressure. It's an understatement to say that I'm disappointed with how everything turned out, but internally I definitely feel better about myself than ever before. I aired out what I had bottled up. My closed-off sexual nature was undoubtedly pressing my existence and paralyzing any potential growth. Rogan always quotes this line that he once heard saying, "Most men live lives of quiet desperation." And initially when I heard that, I like felt it in my soul because I knew the trajectory of my life. Just an old man who never confronted his sexuality, by himself with nobody left in his universe, just listening to his own music, perishing in the darkness. And because I was already rapping before I heard Rogan repeat that quote, at least I knew to some degree I did have an outlet doing that, so it wouldn't have been as quiet and as desperate of a life as it would have been had I never started rapping. But because of like how big of an elephant in the room existed in my life, as more time would have passed, it would have been like a force to say like, oh yeah, I expressed myself through my music, because it's like kind of like, oh yeah, hey, look at me, look how lyrical I am, but like I won't talk to anybody about why I've never had a girlfriend, you know what I mean? So like I did have that outlet, but even with it, I did feel like that quote, "Most men live lives of quiet desperation," was especially true for me. And that's why I will say, like, as much as I despise Kill Tony right now in like every way possible, I am beyond blessed to have it to serve as like an outlet for me to air my shit out. That's like the most important reason why I'm blessed to have it. But like I'm also blessed to have it because like it's a platform to still go for it. Like it doesn't really feel like I'm going for it much anymore, but like at least the dream is still alive, you know what I mean? The dream isn't dead till Tony blackballs me on Kill Tony. But like now, if and when I perish living in quiet desperation, at least like I'll feel like I tried to bring my existence to life the only way that made sense for me. I traveled the only path that I saw. I found somewhere to go for it and I went for it. So like even if it is quiet desperation, I'll feel like I yelled out as widespread as possible, specifically now because I have the podcast. And like the podcast only exists in conjunction with Kill Tony. Without Kill Tony, I would have never started the podcast. So like it's because of Kill Tony that I was able to start the podcast, and it's because of the podcast that I really feel like I made an attempt to not live a life of quiet desperation. It's like now instead of quiet desperation, it's kind of like loud desperation. It will look like quiet desperation though if I'm still doing this at like an old age with nobody listening. But the quiet desperation definitely would have existed if I had everything bottled up for my whole life. So even if everything is sad and depressing towards the end, at least I'll feel like I didn't press myself by keeping everything bottled up. So ultimately the trajectory of my fate does look like it's gonna be one of desperation, but not even close to what it would have been had I never found rap, aired my shit out on Kill Tony, or started the podcast. So even if life closes in on me, at least I try to open up my existence. It's not like I will box myself in by running away from the elephant in the room forever, because that's what it felt like was happening with me. But like I said, I got exactly what I deserved from doing what I did on Kill Tony. I deserve to feel better about myself internally and feel more present on the surface and less pressure on my interactions going forward. But I deserve that moment to blow up in my face just like it did, in terms of like expanding off of it, because like I thought that was it. Back in the day, if somebody told me the opportunity that I'd have to scratch the surface through Kill Tony in conjunction with the foundation that I would have on my YouTube channel, I would have thought nothing could hold me back. And then you factor in how I was doing some form of coming out of the closet publicly on Joe Rogan's stage in front of one of his best friends on a show that gets millions of views in this era where clips go viral. I would have been so sure of myself that it was going to lead directly to Rogan. I mean, if you told me that shit back in the day, I would have been so fucking sure of myself. Just like I had been so sure of myself for the past few years. And just like I was still so sure of myself in the days leading up to the airing of the episode. But like, here's how I'll break it down. I'm shell-shocked and demoralized. Shell-shocked by the lack of traffic to my YouTube channel, and demoralized by realizing how much I overplayed my cards with Tony Hinchcliffe in terms of like how he views me. When Reality Meets Perception is the name of my first album, and in terms of my relevancy in Tony Hinchcliffe's universe, that moment was definitely when Reality Meets Perception. I'll get back to that, but like I just said, the traffic to my YouTube channel was what had me shell-shocked. Last episode, I said at minimum there's going to be traffic to my YouTube channel, specifically on the podcast. There really wasn't. I didn't get the Kill Tony bump to a shocking degree. I got significantly less views than both of my previous Kill Tony appearances brought in, which is shocking because of like how much the show has exponentially risen in scope since then. I've seen what's done for other recent bucket pulls. I'm constantly seeing people posting their Kill Tony appearances on YouTube and getting like hundreds of thousands of views. Plus, I'd expect people to be much more inclined to search for a rapper on YouTube than a comic, because like you'd expect a rapper to have much more of a digital presence than a comedian, specifically like a rapper with an alias, opposed to like just talking about like a comedian who goes by just like their regular name. But so with all things even, just the growth of the show is what had me thinking this time would definitely bring more traffic to my YouTube channel than my previous Kill Tony appearances did. But then factor in how I made much more of a splash this time. This was the Kill Tony appearance that everything was building towards. Like after my last appearances, I knew those were just to set up this appearance. And my previous Kill Tony appearance brought in almost 10,000 views to my YouTube channel. So I thought getting like a surplus of 10,000 views would be clockwork this time. Not even high expectations, but what happened was exponentially worse than what I thought the bare minimum was. YouTube provides unbelievably good analytics for people with YouTube channels, so like I could check everything. Not only can I check on any day ever how many views I've ever gotten, I could check to see how many views each music video is done on any single calendar day ever. But the night that the episode aired, my YouTube channel only got 350 views. That number is what had me shell-shocked. There was 350 views the night the episode aired, and then there was that same amount, another 350 the next day, and then 150 the day after that, and then every day from there the number would just decrease. And then like after a week or two, it dried up to the point where it's back to normal, which is like 10 to 20 views a day. And I will say that that's like post Kill Tony normal. Like before I was ever on Kill Tony, there's no views. So I should be thankful for what I get instead of biting the hand that feeds me. But fuck Kill Tony. But overall, this Kill Tony appearance brought in about 1,500 views to my YouTube channel. And like I just said, I could go back and check out how many views I got on any day ever. So I plugged into the future the dates around my previous Kill Tony appearance, and that one got me 1,600 views the night that the episode aired and 2,800 the next day, compared to this one, which was, like I said, 350 and 350. So I mean, that's like 10 times as much. And this appearance even did significantly worse than the first time I got up on Kill Tony, and that time the show was in like a deep slump in terms of viewership. It still was slow from COVID, and it hadn't like picked up its momentum again. And that was like my worst Kill Tony appearance, and that one still brought in 950 views the first night and then 850 the next day. It's fucking crazy. And the worst part of it all is out of the 1,500 or so views that I had on my YouTube channel after this Kill Tony appearance, about half of them were on the video of my previous Kill Tony appearances. So there was only like 750 views on my actual music in the podcast, and like 300 of those views were on the podcast episode that I did, like recapping the Kill Tony appearance, and the average viewership of that video was like 2 minutes. So they almost like don't even count as real views. People click, but no one actually watched the video. And then the icing on the cake is every single comment that I got on my YouTube channel was negative. So out of the few people who did check my shit out, most of them were there just to hate. So it's like not even good views. Like I'm counting every single view I got, but like none of them even like me anyway. So what good is it? And in terms of gaining new subscribers, I got 21 new YouTube subscribers. So like I guess it's better than nothing, but it's a lot worse than I expected. I did get like 190 subscribers to my OnlyFans account though. Of course, it's all guys, and I got mad DMs. One guy asked if I do custom videos, which had me thinking like maybe I should just cater to my fan base and focus on custom jerk-off videos for gay dudes. But it's just a shame because through Kill Tony, I finally feel like I'm getting my fair shot to get my shit heard. But even though I'm getting my fair shot, the fact that nobody's checking out the podcast or the music makes me feel like I'm getting my fair shot, but I'm still not. Like I'm definitely getting my fair shot, but all my shit is still buried. So the lack of traffic to my YouTube channels was shell-shocking, but what was demoralizing to me and what totally broke my spirit was how irrelevant I clearly am to Tony Hinchcliffe. And I use words like demoralizing and broke my spirit because what that made me accept is the reality that it's an extreme long shot that Tony Hinchcliffe ever brings Rogan to my YouTube channel, and it's as simple as that. And that to me is way more important than how many clicks I got this go around on my YouTube channel. But like what I thought was inevitable, I now see as highly unlikely, and that's what I was most concerned about. Getting the podcast and my music to Rogan is way more important than a few thousand clicks on my YouTube channel after a Kill Tony appearance. Before I even ever got on Kill Tony, my motto was I just need Tony Hinchcliffe to know who I am. If Tony Hinchcliffe knows who I am for 10 years, he'll definitely bring Rogan to my YouTube channel. Back then, I couldn't imagine Tony Hinchcliffe knowing who I am for 10 years and not bringing Rogan to my YouTube channel. But now, like, I just don't see how it's going to happen. Like, it's a possibility that it could one day come into fruition, but it's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to get up enough on Kill Tony to really water the sea like that. And like I'm not in his face enough so that like if I ask him to do it, it'll be totally out of rhythm. He's not going to bring Rogan to some bucket pulls YouTube channel because they ask him to. It has to be something that he sees himself and he wants to do, like, yo, Joe, you got to check this kid out. But he's not going to make the connection because I'm just not going to be up there enough to water the seed. Like, it's been 3 years since my last appearance. Like, it's just not going to happen often enough. And like, even when I left that night, I thought he just trolls me when it comes to me being a rapper. And like, I thought like he was messing with me. Like, oh, you're a rapper? Like, of course you know I'm a rapper. But like, after the episode aired and I watched it back, I saw that when I told him that I rap, he was like, that's what you do? And I was like, yeah, you don't know I rap? And his response is basically like, dude, it's been years. Like, the fact that my name isn't synonymous with being a rapper to Tony just shows like I'm light years away from where I thought I was. I figured to Tony, even if Stern Worm is an afterthought, I thought for sure to him like my name is at least synonymous with rapping. And the fact that it's not is demoralizing. And that means he definitely hasn't been to my YouTube channel, so he doesn't realize like how official my shit is. He probably never even saw the Waiting on My Moment music video where I incorporated Kill Tony. But like, I'm much closer to just being a total afterthought to Tony, which I am basically, than I am him bringing Rogan to my YouTube channel, which he's not. Like, I honestly thought he already had made the connection and saw from a mile away, like, wait till Rogan gets a load of this kid. But that's clearly not the case and not even a thought in his mind. The last thing I'm worried about is whether or not Rogan would be obsessed with me. I know he is, but the only path that I see to him goes through Tony Hinchcliffe, and it's looking like that's most likely a dead end. I thought I had the perfect plan and everything everything was set up on a platter for me. But my miscalculation was that I'm just irrelevant to Tony Hinchcliffe, and it's as simple as that. I'm just another bucket pool. He doesn't see me at like an elevated status like I thought he did. I thought he saw me as kind of like the main character of all the names in the bucket. But like I thought I stood out to him because like obviously I think I'm official as fuck with this rap shit. But like because the day I spoke to him at the Comedy Store, I made such a memorable impression. I told him that I was coming out of the closet on Kill Tony, and we had a brief chat about it, and I was chewing off his ear the rest of the night about like God only knows what. But like I figured that conversation stuck with him, but I don't even think he remembered that conversation. Maybe he remembered after I did it, but it's not like he remembered me for that. But like the night that happened at the Comedy Store, I was kicking it with him like the whole night, you know what I mean? And that night I had already hit him off with one of my mixtapes. So after like what I told him mixed with the fact that the mixtape had mushrooms on the cover, I figured like he'd be interested to hear the music. And then once he listened to it, I thought that it'd be a rap. But like I figured he realized how official my shit was back then, and I thought I had been on his radar ever since. And ever since then, I fostered the relationship to the best of my abilities by getting up on Kill Tony a couple times and seeing him out and about a couple times. Like when I first moved out to Austin, I saw him at a bar, and when I went up to him, he knew who I was before I even said anything. Like that's why I really thought like he remembered who I am vividly, just because like I hadn't seen him face to face in like 9 months, and like I just went up to him and he remembered me, like, without me even saying it. So that's why I thought for sure he knew who the fuck I was. And I thought, like, I started building with him at the perfect time because I established the connection right before the transition from Los Angeles to Austin. So when Kill Tony moved to Austin and I showed my face to him in Austin, I figured he saw it as kind of like I moved with Kill Tony to Austin, and he respected the commitment. And like he recognized the commitment, like he always saw me as the person who's here specifically for Kill Tony. But that's not the case. Like my commitment to Kill Tony, it's not even a thought to him. And it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like I'm not complaining about it. Like I'm just mad at myself for thinking. I always think people like me more than they do. You know what I mean? I always think I'm more relevant to people than I actually am. But I misplayed my hand. I thought I had a royal flush, only to come to realize I've been sitting on a broken straight for a long time now. But so ultimately, the path to Rogan is just not as paved as I thought it was, and it looks like it's closing up on me. I've come to accept the fact that this shit is most likely not going to work out for me, and it's a fucking shame because I have no doubt whatsoever that Rogan will be obsessed with me as a person, my music, and my podcast. And I know if I could just get to Rogan, through him I could establish my baseline value and easily turn this podcast into a career. But like the reason I think it's really a shame in my opinion that it's not going to work out for me is because like I know that I embody as a rapper exactly what everybody claims they want. Really good lyrics and existing in that 90s sound mixed with the fact that like I'm a white rapper. Like I don't ever like call myself a white rapper, but obviously like I'm a white dude who raps, and nobody really ever laid the blueprint for being a white rapper with that vintage New York sound. So like there's such a void for somebody like me in my opinion, and like my content is on some other shit. I really believe to a degree I exist in my own lane as a rapper, and like not to mention I really exist in my own lane as a podcaster. But between who I am as a rapper and as a podcaster, I just feel like I have an in-demand product. And the reason it's really a shame that I can't spark the flame is because everything I do I post for free. I'm not even out here asking people for money. And like the biggest shame of it all is I'm so fucking close to getting to Rogan. I'm a mile away from him, and all he wants to do is help me get my life out of the gutters. He just doesn't know me. I'm one move away, but unfortunately it's not my move. It's Tony Hinchcliffe's move, and it looks like it's a move he's never gonna make. But so on the pre-Kill Tony airing podcast episode that I just dropped, I had mentioned that the plan was to trip on Christmas, 2 days after the Kill Tony episode aired. I expected to be in like a whirlwind of YouTube traffic when I tripped, and I thought the trip was going to serve the purpose of keeping me grounded and to tame my ego. But after the minimal traffic to my YouTube channel, the realization that Tony's most likely not bringing Rogan to my YouTube channel, and overall terrible reaction to my Kill Tony appearance kind of just turned the mushrooms into the ego shattering medicine that I needed. It was a straight up soul searching trip. That's what most of my trips are, but this time it was like magnified. I had mentioned on the pre-Kill Tony airing episode that the trip was on Christmas, and this might change as I get older, but right now being alone on the holidays doesn't make me the slightest bit sad or lonely. Like, I've never had an emotional attachment to any of the holidays. If anything, I always saw it as just like some gay ass obligation that I had to get through so I could just chill and enjoy a responsibility free day. My only attachment to the holidays was based on whether or not I was getting presents. I never grew up cherishing the sentimental aspect of the holidays, nor do I come from a family with like deep rooted holiday traditions. And my family's Jewish, so like Christmas really never meant anything to me. And all that Hanukkah meant to me was presents. But like, I always feel a deep sense of isolation behind my existence when I trip. But being that this trip was on Christmas, it definitely contributed to how that deep sense of isolation was magnified on this trip. Specifically because I spent most of the trip just walking around outside and everything was shut down for Christmas. So the streets were deserted and it gave me like a heightened sense of isolation. But like, the main reason that the sense of isolation was enhanced this trip was because the Kill Tony moment had just blown up in my face. I walked around feeling like a deep sense of isolation and despair. Every time I trip, I feel like I'm a disgusting human being. Psychedelics kind of shines a light on the invisible roots of nature, and it highlights to yourself all your negative characteristics. And this trip had me feeling like I'm just a really self-centered human being. Back in the day, a friend called me selfish, and another friend that we were with co-signed it, and I pushed back against it at the time. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not selfish. I was like, what the fuck have I ever done to you guys that's been selfish? And they kind of gave me like a bullshit answer, because it's not really selfishness that they were trying to describe as much as it is being self-centered. A selfish person will do something to negatively affect others to benefit themselves. I don't want to negatively affect other people, but I'm always only thinking about myself, and everything I do revolves around me. Hence being a self-centered person. Like, I'm the center of my universe, and that's all there is to it. But like, I highly doubt it's just those two people who think that. Like, I bet even people from my past who never complained about me being selfish or self-centered, I bet if they gave me an honest perspective on what bothered them about me, specifically like when I was fresh in their minds back in the day, like now they probably don't remember, but like they probably all would have said Worm only gives a fuck about himself. And I bet that's probably the same scouting report that disconnected people who met me in different settings would all have about me. And it's not like a terrible trait to be self-centered as long as you're not negatively affecting the other people around you. And I think it is a great quality to have as an artist, because then you're a centered artist. I don't write rhymes about other people. I focus on myself. But being self-centered isn't a great trait to have when building relationships and existing in other people's universes. Nobody wants someone in their universe who's self-centered. I truly believe from a distance my energy is infectious in like a good way, but like when you're too close to me, I think my energy is cancerous. And that's for many reasons, but one of it is because I'm just so caught up in myself. I exist much better as an acquaintance to somebody than as like a friend. But like when I trip, that's the one regret that I do have, being too self-centered. But it's just in my nature. It's not something I do purposely. It's just who I am. Take it or leave it. But like, by this point, most people have left it. But so overall, the trip just kind of had me feeling super down on myself. And obviously the reason the trip went into that direction was because it was 2 days after the Kill Tony episode dropped. And when I was out there tripping, I felt a deep sense of what I was talking about to open up the episode, which is I got exactly what I deserved. Like I said earlier, I deserve to feel better about myself for airing out my truth, but I deserve to have that moment come crashing down on me and blow up my face exactly like it did. And I really felt all that when I was tripping. I did the moment for myself, not for the attention, but I thought and was definitely hoping I get attention from it, and that's what I don't deserve, the attention from the moment. But that was the first time I felt like something was going to happen for me in the content realm. I was so sure of myself and cocky about it, so not only did I not deserve the attention from the moment, but because of how inflated my ego was, I did deserve the moment to blow up my face just like it did. And when you're tripping, that right there is what mushrooms highlights. Even if when I'm tripping I can't put it all into words, the mushrooms makes you sense it. And like the overlying message I sensed this trip was you got exactly what you deserved. But tripping is the best. Nothing beats tripping. My brand is my religion. Tripping motherfucking lights on. Alright, so that puts a cap on the trip that I went on. And then like moving on, for the past 5 years, I've been positive that if I could execute the moment properly, I was harnessing the ultimate Kill Tony moment. And then I believed I executed it properly. I left the mothership that night thinking from a performance standpoint, it couldn't have gone any better. I can't cannot believe how negatively the internet perceived it. I left the mothership that night thinking Tony could clown on me all he wants, but the film is going to paint a different picture, but that's obviously not what happened. I'm disappointed by the negativity and surprised by how much there was of it, but like, to me, what was really surprising was the lack of balance in opinions. It was 100% negative comments. There was not one positive comment about me, whether you're talking comments on the actual Kill Tony episode or comments on like my videos, whether it be music videos or the podcast. I figured the negativity would be people saying I'm attention hungry. I didn't think the consensus would be that it was a horrible way to start the show, Stormworm's cringeworthy, and he should be blacklisted from the show. It's unbelievable. I can't believe people don't appreciate the rawness of what I did up there. And Tony always says it takes courage to get up there. Well, what about going up there and knowing you're about to do what I had planned? Like, doesn't that take courage? Like, where's the love for that? And I don't want to say it took courage because, like, real courage is different than that, but it took exponentially more courage than what it takes for the average bucket pool. And he says it takes courage for them to get up there. But, like, in terms of my actual minute, I didn't expect people to find it laugh out loud funny at a comedy show, but I thought the people watching it at their home would find the essence of what I'm saying to be funny. And then during the interview, I addressed something that's a major theme throughout Kill Tony's history, which is people struggling with sexual performance. It's the story of Hans Kim's life, which has been displayed to us on that show. So just the fact that I knew I was hitting on something that has been a major theme throughout the show's history made me feel like I was making a real contribution to the show with what I was doing. Even if someone doesn't find my minute funny, the point of it was to set up the interview, which I knew was going to embody the essence of the show. And then I spit half of a verse that lines with the moment and further paints the picture. When you hear me tell my truth on stage and then you hear those rhymes, like, how does anyone not get it and appreciate the art that got created from my existence? But overall, I just felt like in all three phases of the Kill Tony appearance, I hit a home run and knocked it out of the park. Whether you liked the minute or not, the delivery was smooth, the interview went well, and then the rap was the ribbon tying everything together. But like I said, that's not how it was perceived. Rogan's like all about not reading the comments online, and I agree with him to a degree. It matters your position in life. If I was in Rogan's position, or even the comedians in the Rogan sphere, and this content creation realm was my career, then I wouldn't give a fuck about what people are writing about me in the comments. The comment section would just be a joke to me. I'd skim through it to be aware of the public perception of me, but I wouldn't get caught up in any of it. But when you're trying to level up in this content realm, and you're currently getting as minimal traffic on my YouTube channel as I currently do, when you get up on Kill Tony, it's impossible not to read the comments about you. I already check my YouTube analytics 20 times a day. What else am I going to do? Ignore comments when they're flooding in? It's not possible. At least for me, it's not. And if everything on Kill Tony went well as far as with Tony Hinchcliffe, and I felt like I was on the trajectory of him bringing Rogan to my YouTube channel, then I wouldn't give a fuck if mad negativity is pouring in through YouTube comments. I care about Rogan checking my shit out, not what some anonymous YouTube commenter thinks about me. But the fact that Tony Hinchcliffe couldn't give two shits about me, and I can't expect or count on him to bring Rogan to my YouTube channel, my only hope to move towards success in the content realm is my second option, which is the internet as a whole. Without Tony Hinchcliffe in my corner, the only chance I have of expansion is the internet liking me. I'm at the mercy of Tony Hinchcliffe, and since that's not looking too bright, it drops down to all I could do is hang my hat on the internet. It's almost like I had all my eggs in the Tony Hinchcliffe basket, and since they cracked there, I brought those cracked eggs and put them in the basket of the internet's perception of me. And the internet took those cracked eggs, shredded them into pieces, and tossed them into the wind. But like, I would never actually take any YouTube comments to heart. But in this instance, the YouTube comments did get to me, and that's specifically because of how much I was relying on a positive response from the internet. Because that was my only hope, the comments were like juiced up to me in terms of their importance. I really can't believe how bad the overall perception of me was. And like I said before, it was the fact that there was no positive responses to balance out the negativity that really surprised me. I read all the comments that were posted on my actual videos because I get an email about it if I get a comment on my video, but I didn't like obviously read all the comments on the Kill Tony episode itself. I skimmed through, but like I wasn't about to scroll through looking for every comment about me, specifically because all the comments were negative. I just couldn't look at that shit no more. I'd say the most reoccurring comments were Sternworm was uncomfortable to watch, an insufferable human being, cringeworthy, and he should be blackballed from Kill Tony. And I will say, even when it's like a hating ass comment on the internet, if there's a reoccurring theme, then there probably is at least some truth to it. I'll acknowledge that to most people, apparently my set was uncomfortable to watch. If you're expecting jokes and you get blindsided with that bit, then I guess I could see how it's uncomfortable to watch. But even if my set was uncomfortable to watch, it's not corny. I'm so sick of hearing corny ass shit in stand-up comedy, specifically by bucket pulls on Kill Tony. And to me, when you're talking about cringeworthy or uncomfortable to watch in terms of stand-up, that's what I think of, corny ass jokes. And people like online who are tagging me as cringeworthy, I think it wasn't limited to my minute. I think they were saying like everything about me was cringeworthy and I was just insufferable. Like, I get it with the stand-up, the minute, if you want to say that's cringeworthy, but I don't understand how you find the interview to be cringeworthy and insufferable. And here's what people don't get, and I know this is the one thing Tony would agree with me on. The bucket pulls who truly are insufferable and cringeworthy are the ones who, during their interview, they won't answer questions honestly. They try to deflect questions by making everything into a joke. But those are the truly insufferable people. The fact that everybody thought the honest and transparent person was insufferable is a reflection of how sick our population is. And I acknowledge that I could undoubtedly be insufferable in everyday conversation. I've noticed it when I talk to other people sometimes. I'm an egotistical, self-centered know-it-all, but that's why I prefer to not have small talk and instead express myself artistically. The fact that I'm insufferable through these art forms to people is crazy to me. So like I said, I just skimmed through the comments in the actual Kill Tony video, and my takeaway from it was just the overall rhetoric more so than specific comments, but I did initially write a few comments down that I want to talk about. One of them was, Sternworm was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm convinced this is the most ridiculous point in space and time in the history of the universe, and we live in the Twilight Zone where nothing makes sense and everything's backwards. And then another comment read, I've never seen a more confused human in my life. And that comment bothers me because admitting I'm confused was the whole point of what I did. I stood on stage and said I'm fucked up in the head sexually. Like, I'm confused out here. At a time when everybody claims to suffer from depression and anxiety but won't talk to anybody but a therapist about what's actually bothering them. At least I'm out here being honest about my issues and what I'm confused about. And I'm much less confused than I used to be. Growing up, I never had one thought that maybe I'm gay. But then when I was like 14, I came across like a gay picture in the back of the magazine I was jerking off to. And it was the first time I actually got turned on and came hard as fuck. And ever since that moment, I've been confused about my sexuality and struggled with my mental health. But back then was when I was the most internally torn and the most confused. I've still got ways to go, but I'm light years ahead of where I was back then, and what everybody saw on stage was a reflection of it. And back then, I was nowhere near ready to hook up with girls, but during that time period, I would always start liking a specific girl, and I'd be convinced that I was the one for her, and she just didn't see it. It's so fucking gay. My last year of high school, I randomly became friends with one of the baddest chicks in school, and I did it with her, and she was sexually active, and I hadn't even kissed a girl yet. I would text her all day long, and I didn't even have the courage to tell her that I liked her in person. So I texted her and told her I liked her. She obviously didn't like me back. And then from there going forward, I was nothing but a problem in her life. I would always start drama with her because I was resentful that she didn't like me, and I'd hate on any dudes that she hooked up with. I remember hearing she once hooked up with 3 dudes at a party, and I texted her calling her a slut and started drama between me and her. And shamefully, I have a few other stories with different girls that are similar to that. It's just so embarrassing to think about. But that was by far the most lost and confused I've ever been. And all of my behavior with girls was just a reflection of the confusion. Like, it was so pathetic back then. I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I admit, I'm still lost and confused out here, but I'm light years ahead of where I was back then. And me standing on stage and airing out my truth is a reflection of the internal growth and me being less confused than I ever have been. You know what I mean? It's me syncing up with reality. It's basically like by airing out my confusion, my external reality is catching up with my internal truth, and it's establishing equilibrium behind my existence. So I guess I'm better off with it that way, even if it results in people laughing at me saying how confused I am. But in terms of being the most confused person that commenter has ever seen, They apparently watch Kill Tony, so they must have seen Hans Kim up there on a weekly basis trying to explain to Tony why his sex life never adds up. Hans even once said on Kill Tony that he has erectile dysfunction when he tries to hook up with his girlfriend. I'm not going to say I'm less confused than Hans Kim, but what I did on stage sounds like a less confused person than somebody saying they have erectile dysfunction when they try to hook up with their girlfriend. And I once heard Bobby Lee on Rogan's podcast say he no longer comes during sex. That sounds like a more confused person than me. I'd way rather stand on stage and say I sucked a dick than say I don't come during sex, because at least saying I sucked a dick makes sense. A man saying he doesn't come during sex just doesn't make sense. And then another comment that goes along the same lines as the last one was somebody said, dude is unwell, talking about me. I personally think somebody who habitually posts negativity in comment sections online is the unwell person. I still see people wearing masks out here. It's 2025. To me, that's what looking unwell looks like. When I'm on the road and I see a car intentionally not letting another car switch lanes in front of them, and when the car jams their way into the lane, the car that wouldn't let them in slams their horn and does the "what the fuck are you doing?" I see it on almost a daily basis on the road, and I think that looks like an extremely unwell person to me. And like I alluded to before, I think the people who broadly suffer from depression and anxiety but can't figure out the roots of their issues, to me, are the unwell ones. At a time when everybody talks about how serious of an issue mental health is, we call somebody unwell for being open and honest about their issues. Maybe if everybody else was open and honest about their issues, we wouldn't have such a sick population who think therapists are the solution to everything. There's currently a $1 zillion mental health care industry. If I'm not well, then apparently I'm not the only one. And the only reason I don't want to totally discount the idea that maybe I'm not well is because when I go through these manic episodes, I accuse all my friends of being in gay relationships with each other and trying to kill me to protect their truth. And everyone told me, like, dude, you're not well, you need to seek help. A comment means nothing to me coming from a random YouTube commenter, but it is the same shit that everybody who actually knows me has said to me. So I don't totally want to discount the comment that I'm not well, but I mean, everybody tells me I need help, but nobody will tell me what exactly I need help for. Meanwhile, I'm telling everybody the main thing that I need help with, the one root that any issues I have probably stem from. But like, I don't need to sit in the darkness with a therapist telling them my issues, because I'm willing to stand on stage and shine a light on it. I much prefer to air out my issues into the open than to tell one person in private, a person who's irrelevant in my life. Airing it out widespread as possible is what makes me feel better about myself. So if I'm not well, then this is the path to getting better, in my opinion. And like, I truly believe one of the reasons why I quote unquote went crazy was because of how I had all this pent up in my system and I was just waiting to get it out. Airing everything out is what starts the process of me getting better, in my opinion. And just knowing I was airing everything out was the process of me getting better. But ultimately, like, I don't need anybody to tell me the roots of my issues stem from my sexual insecurities. I could put two and two together myself. But the more I try to figure out the truth of my sexuality is being cut and dried, the blurrier everything gets. And I blasted loads at peak arousal to both genders. So like, there's no therapist or anybody who's going to help me get to the bottom of my sexuality issues, because I truly am internally torn. What I need is people from both genders who I'd be down to hook up with, who also want to hook up with me in the house for one day and let the truth sort itself out, and whatever happens. But unfortunately, the world isn't Stern Worm's oyster to get right sexually. And then another comment, and this one was posted on like my video, my pre-Kill Tony airing podcast episode, is said, dude, you bombed at Kill Tony. You were not funny, and it looked to me more like a mental breakdown than a comedy bit. Okay, that's fine. If this person thinks I bombed, I wasn't funny, and what I did wasn't a comedy bit. All fair assessments. But the part it looked more like a mental breakdown is what gets me, and it goes along with what I've been saying with the previous two comments. This is me surfacing my issues. The person who's confused, unwell, and has a breakdown is the person who bottles everything up, not the person who airs everything out. This wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough, and I'm not just trying to convince myself that. I'm pushing through what's bothering me instead of being pressed down by it. The pressure has me paralyzed, and this is me trying to alleviate the pressure and mobilize my existence. And then another comment that got under my skin was somebody wrote, you try too hard. I know what it feels like when I'm trying too hard, and that's definitely not it. What I love about existing in this content space is that everything I do is extremely prepared, so everything is effortless and I could get my shit off without trying at all. And that's by design, because I hate how it feels when I'm trying too hard. I fucking hate that trying hard feeling. It's why I hate freestyling, because when I freestyle, that's just me trying hard to think of shit to say. And I hate watching people try too hard. It's why I hate improv. To me, it just looks like people people trying to be funny and like fishing for humor. Like, I hate seeing people try hard. So when someone criticizes me for trying too hard when I know I'm not trying too hard, it just sounds so ridiculous to me. And during Kill Tony, someone who tries too hard in their minute doesn't do a minute about doing gay shit. They do a minute filled with cheap ass jokes catering to what they think people will laugh at. If anything, they're gonna tell a bunch of jokes about getting pussy. The content of my minute was somebody who's like, fuck it, I'm done trying to fit in. And during my interview, I just stood up there and answered every question honestly. I didn't try to be anything except myself. The bucket pulls who try too hard during the interviews are the ones who try to turn every question into a cheap ass joke. During the interview, when Tony says to the person, stop trying to be funny, it's not working, those are the exact people who try too hard. And then in the Kill Tony comment section, I read a comment that said, Stern Worms raps reduce my brain cells capacities to function. I exist in the twilight zone and that's all there is to it. The 8 bars that I rapped, I say, the rays of the sun shine brighter after rain. I started writing rhymes so that I could share my pain. No matter where you're from, man, shit could get real. I was told the sky is blue. I see it more as teal. Stuck in a slump, can't seem to find a groove. Catch me out here chasing dreams, trying to make moves. Getting fucked by life every day, being screwed. I've got to win cause so far all I've done is lose. That's what reduced this person's brain capacity to function. I live in the fucking twilight zone. All everyone does is talk about lyrics and 90s hip hop, and then this is their response to somebody who does exactly what they all claim to want. When I hear everyone complaining about the state of modern day rap and then they shit on my music, to me it's just a reflection of a mentally sick society. And that comment, Stirworms raps reduce my brain capacity to function, that comment got me. I was about to respond and type up the lyrics to what I rap, but then when I went to do it, I couldn't find the comment initially to like respond, and I just took it as a sign to not get sucked into that shit. No matter how low I am in life, I'm always above that. And then 2 weeks after the Kill Tony episode aired, I dropped a music video called Paving My Path, and within 10 minutes of the video being posted, somebody wrote, this is rock bottom, what the fuck did I just watch? The first 4 bars of that verse, I say, my body's malnourished, surviving off of crumbs. I can't see where I'm going or remember where I'm from. Lost in the abyss, spaceship crash landed, I swam onto an island but I'm still stuck here stranded. How could that be that person's response to those rhymes? I'm telling you, I live in the fucking twilight zone. Nothing makes sense from my vantage point. And then on the video of my previous Kill Tony appearances, somebody recently posted Tony actually feared for his life at 1753 with crying emojis. And that's always been a theme when I get on Kill Tony. This kid's actually gonna kill Tony. It's such a fucking joke, and it just shows how sick people are. They accuse the fully transparent person of being a loose cannon. It's the people up there that are a shell of a human being who you gotta watch for. It's the people who shield themselves artistically who you gotta watch for. It's Hans Kim versus Rick Diaz. Out of the two of them, if there's one loose cannon, it's gonna be Rick Diaz. I don't gotta worry about Hans Kim. If he's gonna kill anybody, it's gonna be himself. I don't know about Rick Diaz though. Who the fuck is he? If he was a loose cannon, it wouldn't shock me because I've heard him artistically and I still don't know who he is. He hides behind a character that he does, and who's more likely to be a loose cannon? Some anonymous YouTube commenter or somebody who says everything they're thinking on their podcast that they release publicly? That's why I always liked Rogan. You could get a sense of his character from his podcast. You know who he is just by listening to him talk, and I feel like the same is true when you listen to my podcast or when you listen to me up on Kill Tony. I don't gotta defend my stability to nobody. The foundation on my YouTube channel does it for me. For me, the most important trait of an artist is them giving you a sense of who they are through whatever their art form is, and that's what I do. So when I do that and I put out art that represents it, it's ridiculous when people say the opposite, like, wow, we really gotta watch for this kid. It's all such a fucking joke, but unfortunately the joke is on me because of my position in life. Like I said before, it's because of where I stand that the comments are getting to me. If I got to Rogan, then I'd be above all this shit. I'd be reading the comments with him and laughing about it, but unfortunately it looks like that's not gonna happen. The problem is I lose if the joke is always on me like it looks like it's gonna be. It's either it's all a joke or the joke is on me. And then there's a bunch of comments on the Kill Tony episode and on my social media pages just call me gay. In the comments of the Kill Tony episode, somebody said that the band played the notes F-A-G as the music when I was rapping. This is exactly what I need in my life though. Me and my sex life should be the butt of the joke. I'm a 40-year-old closeted virgin. The joke is on me. And that's what it was when I was younger. When it came to hooking up with girls, I was the butt of every joke. But then once I left that social circle, I was able to drift around down and shield the truth. But because of that, I no longer felt like myself in social interactions. But doing what I did and airing everything out, now it bounces out and aligns with reality. And now going forward, I could feel more authentic in any potential social interactions that were to stem from that. And then the final comment that stood out to me, someone said something like, having an OnlyFans account might have been cool when you were in high school, but now it's time to grow up. First off, if I started an OnlyFans account when I was in high school, I could promise you I wouldn't have been perceived as cool. I would have been the laughing stock of the school until I graduated. And I didn't start the OnlyFans account to quote unquote try to be cool. I started the OnlyFans account basically for two reasons. First off, hoping girls go to it and see me in a sexual light. And then the second reason is I would hope that going forward, anybody that I might hook up with has seen those pictures and they know what my dick looks like. So there's no moment of truth when they see it for the first time. But I definitely didn't start the OnlyFans account thinking it would make me cool. But the commenter who told me to grow up, what that person thinks growing up is, I will proudly never become that. And the thing is, anyone who responds grow up when they hear I have an OnlyFans account, which is probably like a large fraction of people, my humor will never hit with them. There's two different types of people. The people think it's hilarious that Sternworm has an OnlyFans account, and the people think it's immature. And the people find it immature will never find anything I do or say to be funny. People who think like that are the bane of my existence. I don't fucking care if that type of person thinks I'm funny or not. Nor am I gonna cater jokes to try to make that person laugh. I don't even want to make that person laugh. That's who all my jokes are about. Those types of people, gay people. And to me, whoever wrote that comment, grow up, is a gay person. It's probably the same type of person who gets in an Uber, hears sports talk radio playing, and asks the driver who their favorite team is. I just saw a clip of a podcast where a girl says she loves facials, and a commenter said, and this was a guy, a woman went through pregnancy and childbirth for this. A family worked and spent a huge proportion of their income for this. Parents spent nights with no sleep. They worried when this thing was sick. They took it to school, provided for it, looked after it, nurtured it, and now they'll probably disown it. I know I would. The person who commented that, I can't make that person laugh, nor do I give a fuck if that type of person thinks I'm funny or not. I referenced earlier that people who still wear masks look unwell to me. My humor will never hit with the person who's still out here wearing a fucking mask in 2025. I don't give a fuck if someone who still wears a mask thinks I'm funny or not. I just heard Rogan say on his podcast that some lady in the audience of one of his shows once didn't like his premise or some shit, and she yelled out, "Next subject." It goes back to the reoccurring theme. None of my humor will ever hit with that lady, nor do I give a fuck if it does. But it's all the same type of person. Some of them are extremely sick, like the people who still wear masks in 2025, or somebody who screams "next subject" when they're at a comedy show and they don't like the premise. And some of them are extremely gay, like the people who say grow up when they hear they have an OnlyFans account, or somebody who thinks that parents should disown their 40-year-old daughter for openly admitting that she likes facials. Sternworm's humor will never hit with these types of people, and that doesn't bother me the slightest bit. I would never give a fuck if these types of people think I'm funny. Those are the types of people who inspire my comedy in the first place. But yeah, so that's kind of like a wrap on the episode. The good thing about not gaining any type of audience or any momentum at all from my Kill Tony appearance is at least now there's no pressure on me to get these podcast episodes ready. I don't have to stay consistent like I thought I was going to have to. I've been busy as fuck with work, and I've had to move mad slowly working on this episode, but like it's fine. It doesn't matter. I didn't like have to put it out quickly after my Kill Tony episode aired. I could move at my own pace and put it out whenever. Like this shit is going to end up dropping like a month and a half after the Kill Tony appearance, but it doesn't fucking matter. And it really benefited me that I had like no pressure on getting this shit ready in a certain amount of time, because when I was editing this, one of the raw files somehow got fucked up and I had to re-record the final part of the episode. That's what I'm doing right now. Luckily, I recorded the podcast in segments, and it was only the last segment that got fucked up. I'm blessed it happened like that, because I had this shit recorded and almost fully edited, and then I deleted a file off my computer that I didn't think I needed, and then that fucked up everything. But like, it's not a big deal, but it would have fucked my shit up if I had an audience and I was trying to put this shit out like the day that I originally planned to, which was like a while back from now. I want the day I originally planned on dropping this episode was like 3 weeks ago. But I recently heard Andrew Schultz say, "You really gotta love podcasting to podcast." Like, it's so easy for him to say that shit. He started podcasting with Charlemagne, so he had an audience from day one. Like, he's never done a podcast where he started from scratch with no audience. But you really have to love podcasting if you're doing it with no viewers except for your mom. It's not that, like, I love working on the podcast that much. I love the fruits of the labor. Like, I love having the completed podcast episodes, but it's more of like a love-hate relationship with the labor process of it. There are times when, like, all I want to do is work on my podcast. Like, when I have something specifically that I want to talk about, like, all I want to do sometimes is sit down and work on the episode. And I love how it, like, keeps me occupied. It's like a good pastime. It keeps me busy. But I hate when it feels like I'm drowning in podcast work that I gotta get through. Specifically when I'm trying to drop a podcast on a certain day, but I can't sit down and work on it for an extended period because I'm, like, busy as fuck with work. Basically, like, I hate when it feels like the podcast is homework that I don't have enough time to get done. It's like school wouldn't have been a problem if I didn't get homework, and I would have actually done all my homework if I didn't have school all day. But when I sit through 8 hours of school all day, there's no way I was doing 2 hours worth of homework every night. Just like working on the podcast wouldn't be a problem if I could just work on it all day, but I gotta work during the day. So when I'm busy as fuck with work, my only time to work on the podcast is at night. And if I'm working all day, then, like, I don't like working on the podcast at night. I just want to chill and relax. That's when it starts to feel like work, and I don't enjoy doing it then. Like, I like working on a podcast during the day, not at night. But when I recorded the pre-Kill Tony airing episode, I was like, wow, it's crazy. I actually feel like this matters and it's gonna be seen. I was, like, infused with energy when I sat down and recorded that. But now that energy is absolutely deflated. The podcast is kind of morphing into just a diary of my existence. It's kind of like a recording of the Sternworm Frequency. I just heard Rogan applauding Theo Von, saying to him, your podcast is so you. And all he does is really, like, interview people on his podcast. But, like, I'm positive that nobody's podcast embodies who they are as much as this one does me. This podcast is like the essence of my existence. But yeah, so like I said earlier, the path to Rogan through Tony Hinchcliffe looks to be a dead end. What I thought was inevitable is now an extreme long shot, but, like, I feel like it's working out exactly how it's supposed to. Everything just seemed like it was on a silver platter for me, and it just felt like it was just too good to be true. That's because it was. If destiny's that it is supposed to work out for me, everything just seemed too easy. It's not how the script of my life is written. I feel like the story of my existence is I'm supposed to struggle till the bitter end, and then it works out for me right before everything closes up, or it's just a never-ending journey of trying to make it until it doesn't happen for me and I perish. But, like, I think it's either not gonna happen for me, or it's gonna happen when I've almost, like, totally given up hope. Start firm, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go.